Diet and nutrition play a huge role in PCOS, Polycystic Ovarian Syndrome. There's a huge number of studies now that have been accumulating over the last 30, 40 years showing that the women who eat the worst quality foods, those of the Western standard processed diet, are more likely to get PCOS, but also more likely to have more severe PCOS, along with lots of other metabolic illnesses and so on associated with that type of diet. But more recently, in the last 5 to 10 years, but the last 5 years in particular, there's a lot of studies showing a direct link between diet, nutrition components, specific diets, and PCOS. I'm going to summarize all of that research in just a few minutes. So stay with me, because at the end, we're actually going to be looking at some of the specific nutrients and even herbs and spices that are beneficial in PCOS. But we also have already 2 other videos up on PCOS to do with the gut. And one of the interesting things about the gut is that all of this stuff I'm talking about here works through the gut primarily, and then secondarily through a nutritional part. So we've got 2 videos up. Check out those videos. They'll make a big difference. The second one was melatonin, and again, works through the gut. So let's look at the very low carbohydrate and ketogenic diet. These are the 2 diets that stand out. There's already research showing the benefits of Mediterranean diet, but these diets jump out. And to sum it up pretty quickly, they're low, very, very low carbohydrate, no processed carbohydrate at all. So you've got all those processed carbs out, and they've got higher good fats and higher high quality proteins, which I'll talk about briefly in a moment. We've already got lots of videos on healthy eating, so check out those as well on our YouTube. But these 2 diets, I've put them together because they show up pretty well the same results. And that is improved body weight and distribution of the fat around the body, and as well as muscle mass and so on. So improved body mass index, etc. But also improved metabolic profile, which are lots of the driving forces behind PCOS. And reduced glucose, insulin, improved insulin resistance, so that the sugar in the blood can actually get into the muscles and so on, and places where it's needed to be burned up, rather than doing the damage in the arteries and causing all of these PCOS related incidents and so in issues. And so then we've got decreased triglycerides, decreased LDL, the small cholesterol, which is the one that gets oxidized, and decreased uric acid. I found one study which looked at women with PCOS and high uric acid, which is a precursor to gout and lots of other conditions, but uric acid and gout. And they found that over 12 weeks, women following a ketogenic diet or a very low carbohydrate diet had lower levels of uric acid, which is a win-win. The great thing about this is it's not just about PCOS, it's about all those other signs and symptoms that literally will plague people throughout the rest of their lives unless they do something about their diet now. So improved hormone balance, decreased free testosterone, a decreased DHEAS, dihydroepiandrosterone sulfate, and a decreased hirsutism, body hair, facial hair, and improved emotional health. There are a couple of studies linking improved emotional health as a result of the outcomes of going on a very low carbohydrate or ketogenic diet. So pretty good reasons all along the way. And a lot of people will automatically think, well, I've got to eat more meat. Well, no, that's not necessarily the answer. I'm a person who believes meat and fish and all that is a part of our evolutionary diet, but I'm not a fan of a carnivore diet. And so I found a couple of studies that were linking legume-based diets and improvement in PCOS as well. And that is, legumes are the beans. These are the lentils, the chickpeas, the baked beans without sugar, of course, added to it, black beans, all of those lentils that we have in many other Eastern diets, not so much in the Western diets and so on. And the legume-based diet decreased cardiometric and metabolic factors, the decreased glucose and the decreased triglyceride, decreased menstrual irregularities, improved reproductive measures. And one of these studies, they followed up the individuals 6 months later, which is pretty rare in science. They kind of finished the experiments and that's it. And so they did the experiment for about 6 months, and then after that they followed them up 6 months later, and still the benefits of the legume-based diet persisted. Now, probably because a lot of the women were then having more legumes in their diet and improved. Because once you get on this treadmill of improving signs and symptoms, you keep doing more and more things, which is what we're about in our YouTube and all the information we put out, giving people the opportunity to take it to new heights, their health and well-being. And if I want to summarize all of the other studies that I've read, and I'm talking about dozens of studies to do with food and nutrition and PCOS, we've got a PCOS diet. It's the Western standard processed diet. It's the cereals for breakfast, it's the cornflakes, it's the Nutri-Grain, whatever you want to call them. They're junk foods. It's the dairy, it's the high processed foods that you're getting. It's the breads, it's all of these things. So we've got processed nutrient poor foods, high carbohydrates, high sugar, artificial sweeteners. A lot of people go, oh, can I use artificial sweeteners instead of sugar? No. The evidence actually suggests that they might be worse for diabetes and the blood sugar type parameters than sugar itself. And unfortunately, there are still some government-sponsored institutes out there telling people to go on artificial sweeteners to lose weight. They don't help with any of that. And if you check out any of my videos on these topics, which I've got, you'll see they don't work. So coming back, artificial sweeteners, absolute no. Now, there are some really great ones that you can add that are based on plant-based sugar substitutes. And some of those are really fantastic. Get rid of processed fats, particularly deep fried, and omega-6. Omega-6s are the vegetable oils. These are the safflower, rapeseed, and they're not vegetable oils, they're actually seed oil. And seeds are great. When you take the oil out of them and leave all the other goodies behind, you end up with a little nasty omega-6, which causes inflammation, which leads to all of the conditions of PCOS, which I've highlighted on all my other videos on PCOS. And so what we want to do is get away from this PCOS diet to a non-PCOS diet, to a healthy diet. And here we're talking again, moving towards a Mediterranean, not past a Mediterranean, a healthy Mediterranean diet or a ketogenic diet. And it's a higher protein, higher fiber. Without any doubt, fiber, you'll see that I've mentioned that in the first video on gut. Natural fats, and these include things like your omega-3 fish oils, but you also get them in things like linseed. And as you'll see in just a moment, linseed/flaxseed is brilliant for PCOS, and it's rich in these omega-3 fatty acids, plant-based ones that act differently to the animal-based ones, the omega-3s. And olive oil, lots and lots of olive oil, almond oil, any of the nut oils are absolutely great as a substitute. But looking at good oils, and that doesn't mean you can't have fats in meat, and some great or fat in. My message is, if it's on the food that you're eating, have it, but don't add any junk fats into it or deep fry. They're the biggest issues. Then you've got lots of veggies, nuts and seeds, which are rich in oils and proteins and nutrients. They're nutrient dense. They're like super little nutrient supplements. Herbs and spices, which have 10 to 100 times more nutrients than your veggies. So if you're not adding herbs and spices, you're really missing out on the benefits. And PCOS is driven by nutrients, okay? Nutrients for the gut, nutrients for your body to be able to do the things it wants to do, lower the inflammation, oxidation. And so you really do need to look at some of these, which I'll talk about. And again, free-range fish, by that, not farmed fish. Farmed fish, like farmed cattle in a constant concrete block, these animals are only have in them what they're fed. So if they feed them junk food and McDonald's, they're the McDonald's type of hamburgers coming through. They're the McDonald's type foods. So what you want to do is free-range fish, free-range meat, and free-range eggs as highlighting a component of a nutritional program. Equally important is intermittent fasting. Fasting of any sort, but my favorite is intermittent fasting. Hence, I've got a couple of videos on the amazing benefits of intermittent fasting, and it has real benefits in PCOS. In fact, pretty well the same benefits that you've just seen me put up on the board with all those other parameters, metabolic syndrome, glucose, all of those issues, testosterone, lowering testosterone levels and balancing out the hormones, almost an exact duplicate of what I've already put up on the board. So I didn't put it up. but intermittent fasting. Now, you may have seen or heard of a ridiculous article put out by the Heart Foundation somewhere around the world showing that intermittent fasting is a risk for cardiovascular disease. Rubbish, rubbish, rubbish. It really only highlights the link between the drug companies and the government authorities around the world. It's ridiculous. And it was the worst possible study, yet there are hundreds and hundreds of studies on the benefits of fasting, intermittent fasting. And it's a part of our evolutionary culture. We never had food on the table every day. We never had it every meal. We never had it. We always, historically, have gone through periods of some form of fast. And so our body has adapted to it to give us the best possible outcome. So it's evolutionary, right? It's brilliant for the body. And intermittent fasting is really simple. The simplest is 12-12. 12 hours in a period which you eat, not the whole 12 hours, but in a period which you eat, and 12 hours that you don't eat. So if you finish eating at 7 at night, you don't eat until after 7. Now that's the simplest strategy. And night eating is a big problem for PCOS. Night eating is a big problem for glucose management tolerance and metabolic syndrome. So try not to. If you are on a night shift or something like that, then you need to work around that, particularly adapting to all the other things I'm telling you about, including something like 16-8. 16-8 is the best time to do. That's when you start to get really into the benefits of the metabolic benefits of intermittent fasting. That's a 16-hour period that you don't eat and an 8-hour. Now, the great thing about intermittent fasting is you can do it any day you want. You can do it every day. You can do it 5 days, 1 day, 3 days, and every day will give you a benefit. The more you do it, the better it is. So if you are serious about alleviating and reversing PCOS, then you want to look at, okay, the diet, maybe the ketogenic diet. Then you need to look at intermittent fasting, and then you need to look at the other parameters I'll be mentioning in a moment, and adding all those together to get the maximum benefit and maximum outcome. So intermittent fasting is, having a meal, let's say 7 o'clock at night. You really don't want any meals late in the evening. As I said, it upsets the circadian rhythm, which plays havoc with metabolic syndrome and so on. And so then you wait 16 hours and then you eat at, what time is it? 12 o'clock, 11 o'clock, something like that. And each day it varies. Now, I do intermittent fasting on a regular basis, but I'm not fanatical about it. I don't need to lose weight. I'm healthy. Everything's good, but I still do it because it helps prime all my systems in my body. So I'd recommend everybody out there to do some intermittent fasting. And as I've already said, check out my videos already on YouTube on intermittent fasting. Now, one of the areas that's really ignored here in PCOS, in fact, most areas, are minerals. And everyone's heard of the minerals. You're supposed to have more minerals. And nearly all of the studies show that PCOS women have deficiencies in certain minerals. Now, the importance of minerals is they're kind of like the fire starter. They're the enzyme kickstarter. You need them for every metabolic thing to happen in your body. The production, the energy, every single thing relies on these minerals. But only small amounts, and they get reused and reused, but sometimes they get dumped. So what we need to do is make sure we've got enough. And the studies typically show that these are the minerals that are deficient in women with PCOS, particularly the top 4, zinc, magnesium, selenium, and chromium, and then to a lesser degree, iron, manganese, sodium, and potassium. So my message here is really, really simple. You want to add a good mineral cocktail to your nutritional program. Now, nuts and seeds and herbs and spices are incredibly rich in minerals. That's why they have lots of benefits, but also look at adding them in. Now, when it comes to these, you also want to make sure you get the best supplement that is most digestible. And a lot of people out there are telling you which one. I'll sum it up. The best ones in terms of magnesium and these gluconate, citrate, and aspartate. So magnesium gluconate, magnesium citrate, magnesium aspartate. I tend to take magnesium citrate when I can. Now that leads me then to one of the studies that was done, and one of the few studies where they gave women some mineral supplements, and in this study they gave them some magnesium, some manganese, some zinc, and some sodium chloride. 20 women over 30 days. Now you're probably saying, sodium chloride, that's table salt. Yeah, I'm a big fan of adding a little bit of table salt. Don't have it in processed foods because you no longer eat processed foods, but add good table salt. Table salt that has got lots of other minerals in it, another 80 or 90 different minerals and nutrients in there. That's what you're after, not the highly processed table salt. So add a little bit of table salt, and the research on that is good. It doesn't cause high blood pressure. And again, if you want to verify that, check out my videos with all the studies below it. And I've been talking about this for decades now. So when they gave them magnesium, manganese, zinc, and some sodium chloride, they improved all of their, or virtually all of their hormonal levels and metabolic parameters. Now, I would have probably added in some zinc, selenium, and chromium, because chromium, by the way, is one of the best ones for helping balance out that blood sugar level, which again is a big issue in PCOS. Now, that then leads to the negatives about the minerals. There's a group of elements called heavy metals. Everybody's heard about them. Cadmium, lead, mercury, antimony, and arsenic. There's a few others in there, but these have been shown to be elevated in women with PCOS. And you're saying, well, where do we get them from? Where? Well, cadmium is probably the single biggest source of cadmium is coming from smoke and smokers. So if you've ever been a smoker, you've probably got elevated cadmium. I'm not going to go into all the details. If you've got peanuts coming from China, you've probably got any food coming from China, you've probably got elevated cadmium because it's in a lot of the soil where it's grown in. So always have your locally grown peanuts, nuts, and food wherever possible. So by the way, I started out my whole research career on the area, working in the area of toxic chemicals, and my first area of research was literally in heavy metals, and that was back in the 80s, so a long time ago. Lead used to be in all the petrol, now it's not, it's been removed, it's in some old paint. Usually you'll find it as a residual in some foods, unfortunately. Mercury, the biggest source of that, tends to be the large fish, eating large fish, not the little fish, the anchovies and the small ones. It's the bigger fish, the salmon and the shark and those ones that are at the top of the food chain. They pass it up through the food chain. Antimony is one that you find in fire retardants. And there's been a lot of media about fire retardants because some of the other chemicals, this is one of the other ones that acts as a residual. These are just possible ones. And arsenic, probably the biggest source of that is rice coming from Asia. And the studies show overwhelming evidence of the rice being contaminated. And of course, I'll have a video about how to clean your rice properly, because some simple strategies like washing it, soaking it in a little bit of sodium bicarb can make a big difference on getting rid of some of these heavy metals and the pesticide toxins. So we do know that these are elevated in women with PCOS. So that then leads us with the minerals onto the vitamins. And probably the easiest one for most people to get, and probably everyone should be taking anyway, is vitamin C, ascorbic acid, and vitamin D. Now, vitamin C is fantastic. It works across the board. It's one of my absolute most favorites and something I've been supplementing with for the last 40 or so years. They're both, C and D are anti-inflammatory, antioxidant, and studies have shown that they benefit women with PCOS. They don't appear to be as powerful as some of the other supplements I'll mention in a moment, but they're beneficial. Vitamin D, the best source of that is getting out in the sun. Always get out. If there's the sun's out there, get an opportunity for a half an hour or an hour, get out there and get in the sun. And as you'll see, I'm a seeker of the sun. I enjoy it. And it's very good for lots of other reasons. So vitamin D, getting it from the sun. If you're not, then supplement. If it's the middle of winter, then supplement. And you'll see on my other videos where I talk about the value and how much is used in terms of international units. The one vitamin that stands out really a lot in PCOS is vitamin E, a potent fat-soluble vitamin. You will find it in seeds and nuts and foods like that. You'll find it in some animal foods, but primarily PCOS women have been shown to be deficient. It's been added to melatonin. It's been used in other programs. A lot of evidence on the benefits of vitamin E. And it improved reproductive outcomes, decreased metabolic syndrome, decreased glucose, insulin, and the balance between with insulin resistance, decreased testosterone, and improved the balance in the sex hormone binding globulin. So all of the parameters improved just with some vitamin E. Now, what's interesting is vitamin E has been added to the probiotics in the first video I talked about. In the second video I've got, they've added it to melatonin, so it's recognized as one of those really beneficial ones for PCOS. CoQ10, otherwise known as coenzyme Q10, has also been used in a number of experiments with women with PCOS, both on its own and in addition to other nutrients. And in this study, 55 women over a 12-week period using about 100 milligrams per day. Now, most of the capsules come in any variation from 50 up to about 300, and it's usually recommended for people over 50, 55 to take 150 anyway, because it lowers the risk of cardiovascular disease. So it's a win-win situation. Now, 100 milligrams per day, decreased anxiety, depression, decreased inflammation and oxidation, the drivers of PCOS. I keep repeating it, but I'm trying to get this across. You lower inflammation, you lower oxidation, you lower all of the conditions linked with PCOS. Decrease in testosterone and DHEAS, a decrease in your sex hormone binding globulin, and a decrease in hirsutism. Now, again, this was a 12-week period, and this can be added on to any of the other ones that we're doing here as well. Quercetin is another supplement that's readily available. Quercetin you get a lot in onions and garlic and apples, but the research on quercetin it's one of these big antioxidants, flavonoids, that can make a really big difference to your health. So again, worthwhile supplementing. In here, it improved all of the reproductive outcomes, decreased testosterone, decreased insulin resistance, and of course decreased inflammation and oxidation. A win-win situation. So coenzyme Q10 and quercetin. Berberine has gained a lot of positive media over the last 5 or 10 years, typically used for diabetes and regulation of blood sugar, metabolic syndrome. So putting it into the experiments with women with PCOS all show positive results. Now, what's interesting in the studies where they've compared berberine with metformin, which is the typical pharmaceutical that they would use with PCOS women, it pretty well equals the same outcomes. They're getting similar results. And as I'll mention later, also with Moringa, it doesn't just equal it, but when you use them together, it has a double benefit. It's a win-win situation. So worthwhile considering, again, adding on these things. So over 60 days, they use 2 times 550 milligrams per day. So 1,100 milligrams all up over the day. It improved the gut microbiome. All of these, by the way, work in a positive way through the gut. But in this study, they actually referenced it, so I thought I'd put it up. It balanced the blood sugar, decreased or balanced the insulin resistance, decreased oxidation and inflammation, triglycerides, body mass index, and the visceral fat, which is the fat around the organs, which is the high risk fat, particularly to do with metabolic syndrome and all of these conditions. And in this case, they also looked at acne and a decreased acne, a win-win situation. Moringa, one of my favorites over the last couple of years. We grow a little moringa bush. That's the great thing about this one. You can grow it. And I'm not a great gardener, but I have some moringa, not enough to use on its own. But moringa, in the same studies, it just comes as a powder. You can get it online. You can get it at most health food stores now. It comes as a green powder, and or as a leaf in my case, and I can add it to salads and so on. It again equals metformin in terms of the studies about the. Seemed to have very similar results when they compared it, and when added onto metformin, had a double benefit. So again, win-win. Now imagine if you're adding lots of these things together, and that's where I'm getting at. Improve fertility, decrease the blood sugar, insulin, blood glucose, and decrease androgen levels, testosterone, and brought the hormones back into balance. Now, there's a lot of research coming out on the benefits of moringa. It's one of those, I consider one of the real superfoods out there. Full of nutrients, vitamins, minerals, antioxidants. So many studies, I think, in the future will show that it has a lot to do with reducing PCOS. And then we've got another food I've been using for a long time, flaxseed, also known as linseed, and it's got something in it called ALA, alpha-linolenic acid. It's one of the plant-based omega-3s, which is really great, has its own benefits, and your body converts a little bit of it into that animal-based omega-3, which is what everyone talks about. Helps with the metabolic parameters, hormonal balance, BMI, body mass index, and weight distribution throughout the body. Soya isoflavones, these are the soya products that you see out there. Everyone's talking about having more soy. I'm not a fan of soya milk, please. Please stay away from soya milk. What I am a fan of is the ones that are fermented, soya that has been fermented. And any supplements, then you're on the right track, but not as soya milk, or not large quantities of it anyway. So in the studies, and there's quite a few studies on soya isoflavones in this situation, it decreased testosterone and hyperandrogenism. That's a tough word to get out when you're in front of a camera. And in other words, balancing the hormones again, normalized menstrual cycle, ovarian morphology, decreased metabolic syndrome, decreased oxidation and inflammation, win-win situation. And then there's a couple of herbs and other add-ons that have been shown to have benefits. One of those I haven't put up here is omega-3 fatty acids. I've mentioned in my other boards, on my other videos, and it's great if you can add some omega-3 fatty acids in, because the research is pretty positive. It's not overwhelming, but pretty positive in there. Some other ones that show up a little bit in there, cinnamon. Cinnamon is really well known for its balancing of blood sugar levels. So and use with diabetes and blood sugar levels. So the message is, if you can add some cinnamon in, some fenugreek, and some Vitex, 3 of the spices and herbs that are effective. Resveratrol gets a good rating. I didn't find any specific studies on any of these ones just for PCOS, but we know that when you have resveratrol and curcumin in particular, they have these potent antioxidant, anti-inflammatory, and they're used in so many conditions: metabolic syndrome, diabetes, cardiovascular disease, and so on. So it's a win-win. And my pet one is K-fiber. It's very clear that K-fiber is one of the new ones coming out. It's not just up fiber, but it rebalances the whole gut microbiome, and it's full of sugar balancing nutrients in it. To sum up the research on PCOS and what we've already presented in the preceding videos, there is no doubt, first and foremost, fix the gut, work on the gut, using probiotics, prebiotics, postbiotics, and diet. Now, we've got that whole video on it. Check out the gut PCOS link. It's an absolutely essential part of the solution. And if you look at some of the comments that we've already got on our social media, literally hundreds of women are already highlighting and saying, yes, this is what I've done. Yes, this is what I've done. Then we get back, so we've got the gut, then we've got melatonin, which is an absolutely essential nutrient for resolving PCOS. The research is very firm and very clear. It's not the sleep neurotransmitter, it's the gut hormone, sleep hormone, melatonin. Myo-inositol, another video on that. Then we've got the type of diets that show up as working. Ketogenic diet, one rich in legumes, Mediterranean diet, and of course intermittent fasting. All of this shows up with clear results. So the question you have to ask is, which one of these programs do you adopt? And of course, in this case, I'd probably go literally intermittent fasting and adapt the ketogenic diet with intermittent fasting, or the Mediterranean diet with intermittent fasting. And you'll see how easy it is to do these. Then you've got the lifestyle programs, and that's exercise, sleep, stress, and toxins, which link into all that. I haven't got into that information, but there will be one up on toxins and PCOS coming up there later on. Then we've got the benefits of the minerals. There is no doubt that the research shows a clear link between mineral deficiencies and PCOS severity. So it's about getting an understanding of what your diet has been, what mineral deficiencies you may have, and looking at particularly zinc, magnesium, chromium, and selenium. See if you can get some supplements with that type of mix. And of course, your vitamins that show up in the research for PCOS are vitamin C, D, and in particular, vitamin E. Both C and D are fat-soluble vitamins, and I've covered these in the preceding video. So you've already got that information. This is just summing it all up. And then in terms of supplements, omega-3s, these are your fish oils: quercetin, CoQ10, berberine, moringa, soya isoflavone, flaxseed, curcumin, resveratrol, and K-fiber. Now, all of these aren't just great nutrients, they also feed the gut. So you can see it's a win-win situation. And then finally, with the heavy metals, there are links with heavy metals and PCOS, particularly with nickel, and there are other cases of other heavy metal exposure, mercury and cadmium linked with increasing the risk of PCOS. So if you've been in an environment where you may have been exposed to heavy metals, again, look in my videos, we'll have more information on heavy metals and exposure. And then finally, in terms of your diet, going back and cleaning it up. Get off the processed foods. There is no way around it. No matter what medication may help, it's just treating the symptoms. You want to fix the problem, you get to the root cause, and that's the nutrients and the nutrient-dense foods that we should be eating. These ones I've highlighted here. Reduce or preferably even avoid gluten. There's a growing body of evidence of the role of gluten and PCOS. Gluten is a gut poison, and again, I have a whole video just on that, gluten and why it's so toxic, and getting rid of dairy as well, with the exception probably of kefir and a good probiotic yogurt. So what we've done here is highlighted, summarized all the information that we've got in the two preceding videos and this video, and it puts it into in a sense, in a program that you can use and adapt. Now, we've got a lot more information in our other videos. Please subscribe below, because that means you'll get the updates on all the information we're doing. And tick the boxes, share with your friends, and check out our other videos. For example, on osteoporosis, we've got a lot of new videos coming out on women's health. So check them all out, and I'll catch up with you later.